Hey there, guys. So, changing up the background again in this video. Um, and what I want to talk about today, again, thank you guys for taking the time to, of course, check out my videos. I really appreciate it. And of course, this is my weekly video that I always enjoy doing, where again, I want to talk about various LGBTQ topics. And in this video, there's like I had pretty much had this topic planned in advance because it had been on my mind, but I was trying to think about a way to approach it while being very considerate with how I approach it, because I do think it can be a touchy topic in a lot of ways. But I do think it's also important to talk about, because there's certain things that have certain things that I've seen that have kind of brought up this topic. And so I really wanted to address it. One thing that really triggered me to discuss this topic is there was a comment that I had received on a specific video, or not a video, it was a photo, I think. And on that, I actually got rid of the comment because I thought it was just not appropriate. But it was basically a comment. I think it was on one of the pictures that I shared where it was my silence equals death hat that I wear that has the pink triangle on it. And somebody on one of the comment or had commented on it and said that, because I said health equals wellness, alongside that particular picture. And then somebody had to comment that less partners equals wellness. And so I just thought that was really inappropriate in a lot of ways. But then this made me think about another topic, which has come up many times because I've watched, various different shows that have kind of brought up this topic. And so, and I think in a lot of ways, there is a lot of stigma around this topic. And it's basically about people who are living with HIV and the shame that is placed on people who live with HIV. Now, I will preface to say that, I'm negative myself, but I do have a specific viewpoint, and I think it's really disrespectful for people to shame somebody who is living with HIV. It really drives me off the wall when people stigmatize others who are, living with HIV. And so I really wanted to share this. I really wanted to mention that this is something that, I mean, this does happen overall in the gay community itself, where people just feel like they want to avoid people who are, living with HIV because they see them as, completely like they're seen as an other, and that really bothers me because anybody, I think when it comes to, understanding, I think we really need to take a step back and understand people and really try to not stigmatize everybody, because we're all in this together when it comes to, our sexuality, as a community. We are in this together. And the fact that we try to separate people because they are living, it's not right. It's not right to see people as an other just because of them having a certain condition. I just don't think it's really the right way to approach it. Now, I do think it's important, of course, to recognize our sexual health at the same time. I think we do need to, of course, take care of ourselves. There's many ways that, in our modern society, in the modern day, it's very easy to get resources. It's way more easy now than it would have been years ago. So, there's all kinds of different resources out there um, when it comes to, preventative options. And I think even more so, like I remember years ago or a few years ago whenever, the concept of PrEP became a thing and I'd first started taking it, and I was like, this is very crazy. Like, this is advanced that we have something like this that, is, you know, what you would say 99% effective, or, having a high, efficacy rate to prevent HIV. Um, so, like, I would just remember when I'd first started taking it, how crazy that was that, you know, we have something like that now. And now you have so many other options that you can take that can prevent HIV. So it's kind of wild to think that we have that now, where we have these healthy, like, health preventative resources that many gay people in the past would not have had access to. And so it's we're really fortunate to be in a time to where we do have access to these resources, and we do, are able to, again, there's so much out there now that can really help you, make healthier choices when it comes to sexual health. One thing too that I want to expand on when it comes to, taking care of yourself sexually. This is one thing that I'm really particular on. So whenever I date somebody, even if I'm taking, medication that's preventing HIV, I'm very cautious, where no matter what, I still want anybody that I'm with to use a condom. And for some reason, this becomes an issue with, I'm not saying all guys, but with certain guys, this becomes an issue where they don't want to wear a condom. This is something I don't understand. I don't really understand this at all. And I think that just because you're taking a medication that, again, is going to be very effective for preventing, HIV itself, you still have to take into consideration your overall health. You have to take that into consideration, I think. I think it's still important to really, be cautious at the same time. And so this is something that, has really bothered me. I don't, you know, I, I just think it's just, you just can't be careless, because it's not only about trying to, you know, because I think anything, of course, anything can happen, even if you're very careful. But it bothers me when there's this barrier with, guys, when it comes to, uh, you know, I want to have sex this way, and it's like there's this barrier where you can't. I just don't understand the why it's so why trying to be safe is like not is like harmful, or like it's like taboo. I don't understand that. Now, that's not to say that, like, with, I've not, had sexual encounters that's been without a condom, but I think it's very important to try to, as much as possible, to be, very particular with your sexual health, and very, cautious. Because like with me, like what I've mentioned with dating, I think, again, I'm very cautious with who I meet up with. And I think I encourage that with anybody else. I think we all need to be very cautious with the guys that we speak to and who we encounter, because we don't know the intentions of other people. We don't know what they are looking for. We only know what we are looking for, ourselves. So I just think it's important to, again, really understand who you're talking to. But again, going to the concept and the topic of itself, we need to really be, again, understanding of people who, have, you know, who are living with HIV. I just don't think I don't think it's right to shame them. And I think anybody we talk to, we really need to be, again, I think it's important to be vocal with who you're talking to. I think it's important to have a conversation and really understand, what you're going through, both of you. Like, if you are, living with it, being able to be honest with somebody. I think if you can fully be honest with somebody and you're able to, have that conversation, I think that helps. And I have honestly, if I was to date somebody, who was, living with HIV, I honestly don't see that as a barrier. I think we, it's just not right to shame somebody because of a condition. It's not right, in my opinion. And it's just been a topic that has come up so much because I've been watching, shows. I had somebody who made that comment, which I thought was really, you know, I don't know if they thought I was positive, but either way, I just think it's not appropriate. I just think it's very disrespectful to shame somebody. You know, I just don't think that's right. Um, but I do, again, I think with any community, though, if you think about it, there's always going to be people that are just, want to cause some drama and chaos. But what I'm trying to get across with this whole, concept and topic, and I hope I'm not going all over the place, as I'm talking about this, because when I do these videos, I try to be really candid and I try to keep it as like, straightforward, not edited. I try to, keep it that way because I want it to be a real, conversation. I don't want it to be something like a bunch of flashy stuff on screen. So, but that's what I wanted to talk about, is that we really need to quit shaming people. We really do. And again, we need to be able to, because when we shame people, it makes it very hard for us to speak to each other when we have, if we're going to be intimate with each other, we need to be able to speak to each other, as much as possible to understand, you know, what we're both going through. So, again, guys, this is really what I wanted to talk about today. I hope that this, kind of brought a little bit of a conversation starter, to really think about, and that this, again, I just think it's something that needs to be talked about. And I think a lot of people do kind of avoid it because I understand that it is a very touchy topic. I think it's very, you know, you should be very considerate when you approach the topic. And that's really what I wanted to try to do with this, because I was very afraid to sort of discuss this because I don't want to be disrespectful in any way, and I don't want to, you know, be offensive in any way when I talk about this. And all I want to say is we can't shame people. We can't shame others. We have to be able to communicate with each other. And I think it's important to, again, we're all human, and so I just think there's so many resources that we have out there today that we should take advantage of. We should take care of ourselves at the same time, so again, guys, I hope that you found this a little bit insightful, and that, I think this would be a good conversation starter to really discuss. But thank you guys for really all your support in my videos, all, the encouragement that you've given me, and just again, all of your thoughtful comments really help. I really appreciate it. Even if from time to time I may have negative comments here and there, I usually try to always just brush them off as much as possible. But thank you guys once again. I really appreciate it. Again, guys, I do. I've been doing some live streams here lately, related to fitness and nutrition. Definitely check those out. But again, guys, if there's any topic you would like me to really discuss and really, bring a little bit more of a conversation to, I would love to, really go into it. Um, especially as a community, I think it's important. But thank you guys once again, and I will see you guys in the next video.